The tension was already in the air, but no one was prepared for what was about to explode. A funeral meant for grief was about to turn into a battlefield. And at the center of it all, Sonny Corinthos walked straight into the storm, because this wasn't just about paying respects, this was about power, about suspicion, about a man who had already decided who was guilty, and he wasn't going to forgive. Not today. Not ever. The moment Sonny buttoned his suit jacket, there was something different about him. Calm, focused, dangerous. This wasn't just another appearance, this was a calculated move. Rick Lansing stood nearby, watching him closely, uneasy. "You really think this is a good idea?" Rick asked, his voice low, cautious. Sonny didn't hesitate. "If we don't do this now," he said quietly, "it's going to turn into open warfare." And just like that, the stakes became clear. This wasn't about a funeral anymore, this was about stopping a war before it even began. But the problem? The other side had already chosen war. Across town, emotions were building in a very different way. Jordan Ashford stood firm, even as concern surrounded her. Isaiah Gannon wasn't convinced. "You're playing a dangerous game," he warned. His eyes were filled with worry, the kind that comes from knowing exactly how things can go wrong. Because Jordan wasn't just doing her job, she was stepping into the fire, willingly. And Isaiah could see it. He knew what Sidwell was capable of, he knew how far things could go. And still, Jordan didn't back down. "I know what I'm doing," she said, steady, controlled. But even as she said it, there was a tension beneath the surface. Because deep down, even she knew this plan wasn't safe. Jordan wasn't just dealing with Sidwell, she was trying to outplay him. And that kind of move, it always comes with a price. Isaiah stepped closer. "Just be careful," he added. But Jordan didn't respond right away. Instead, she held his gaze for a moment longer than usual, because for a second, this wasn't about strategy. This was about survival. And somewhere deep down, Isaiah knew this could all go very, very wrong. Meanwhile, another emotional confrontation was quietly unfolding. Curtis Ashford sat across from Nina Reeves. There was history between them. Complicated, messy, real, and today, Nina was finally ready to face it. "I owe you an apology," she admitted. Her voice wasn't defensive, it wasn't calculated. It was honest. And that alone made this moment different. Nina took a breath. For everything, especially what happened with Portia, the memory lingered between them. Portia being forced to testify, the ripple effects, the damage it caused. Nina had been part of that. And she knew it. "I let things get out of control," she continued softly. "And I let our friendship slip away." For a moment, silence. Curtis didn't react immediately, he just studied her, weighing her words, judging her sincerity, because apologies in Port Charles? They don't come easy, and they don't always mean what they say, but this time, Curtis didn't push back, he didn't lash out. Instead, he nodded slowly, as if he already knew, as if he had already let it go, but then, he leaned forward slightly, and his tone shifted. "You need to be careful what you wish for," Curtis said, and just like that, the mood changed. Because that wasn't just advice, that was a warning. Nina frowned slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" Curtis didn't explain right away, because sometimes, the truth doesn't need to be spelled out. And whatever Nina was hoping for, whatever she thought she was about to gain, Curtis clearly believed it could cost her more than she expected. And that realization, it lingered in the air, long after the conversation moved on. At the hospital, the atmosphere was completely different. But just as heavy, Molly Lansing Davis was being admitted. The room felt sterile, quiet. But underneath it all, there was fear, real fear. Because this wasn't just a routine procedure, this was about her future, her health, her life. Endometriosis had already taken so much from her: pain, uncertainty, emotional strain, and now, everything came down to this surgery. Christina Corinthos Davis stepped into the room, her expression softened the moment she saw her sister. "Hey," she said gently. Molly managed a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because no matter how strong she tried to be, this moment was overwhelming. Christina sat beside her, I'm here, she added. And for a second, that was enough. But Christina wasn't just there to comfort her, she had something on her mind, something she hadn't fully said out loud yet. I've been trying to keep things from getting worse, Christina began. Molly looked at her, curious. What do you mean? Christina hesitated, just slightly. But Molly noticed. She always notices. Jacinda, Michael, everything going on, Christina continued. Her voice trailed off. Because she wasn't saying everything. Not really, and Molly could feel it. There was something else there, something deeper, something personal. Molly tilted her head slightly. And just like that, the tension shifted. Because now, this wasn't just about support, this was about truth. Christina froze, just for a second, but it was enough. And Molly saw it. Christina, she said quietly, what aren't you telling me? The room went still, the kind of stillness that only happens right before something important is revealed. Because Molly wasn't guessing anymore, she knew, or at least, she suspected, and what she was about to uncover could change everything between them. Back across town, another emotional weight was building. Alexis Davis stood alone for a moment, trying to stay strong, trying to stay composed. But inside, she was unraveling. Because Molly's surgery wasn't just about Molly. It brought back memories. Painful ones. Sam. The loss. The trauma. The hospital. Everything came flooding back. Alexis closed her eyes for a moment, trying to steady herself. But the truth? She was scared. And for someone like Alexis, admitting that fear wasn't easy. But today, she didn't have a choice. Because this time, she might lose someone else, and that thought. It was unbearable. As the hospital buzzed quietly around her, Alexis realized something she didn't want to face. She couldn't go through this alone, and somewhere nearby, someone else was struggling too. Cody Bell paced slightly, restless, unsettled. Because even though this wasn't his fight, he felt it. He cared, more than he probably admitted. And as the tension built, two unlikely people were about to find something in common. Fear, the kind that brings people together, even when they don't expect it. And just as emotions were rising inside the hospital, outside, something much bigger was about to erupt. The funeral, the place where everything would collide. And Sonny, he was already on his way, dressed sharp, composed, ready. But what he didn't know was that the moment he stepped into that space, everything would change. Because Sidwell was waiting, and he wasn't looking for peace, he was looking for someone to blame, and in his eyes, that someone was Sonny. The confrontation was inevitable, the anger already boiling, and once it started, there would be no turning back. Because today, grief would turn into rage, suspicion would turn into accusation, and one wrong word could ignite everything. And as Sonny approached the funeral, one question hung in the air: was he walking in to make peace, or walking straight into war? The moment Sonny stepped out of the car, everything shifted. The air felt heavier, colder, charged with something no one could ignore. This wasn't just a funeral anymore, this was a battlefield dressed in black. People had already gathered, quiet conversations, whispers, eyes watching, waiting, and then they saw him. Sonny Corinthos. The reaction was instant, some shocked, some uneasy, some already expecting trouble, because everyone knew, if Sonny showed up, Sidwell wouldn't stay quiet. Rick stepped beside him, lowering his voice. "We can still walk away," he muttered. But Sonny didn't even look at him. "No," Sonny said calmly, "I came here for a reason." And that calm, it wasn't peace, it was control, the kind of control a man holds right before everything explodes. Inside, Jen Sidwell stood near the front. Still, silent. But the anger inside him, it was anything but quiet. Because today wasn't just about loss, it was about vengeance. Marco Rios was gone, and in Sidwell's world, someone had to pay, and when Sidwell finally looked up, he saw him, Sonny. For a split second, everything froze, then the temperature in the room dropped. Sonny walked forward slowly, measured steps. No hesitation, no fear. And that alone, it made everything worse. Because to Sidwell, that didn't look like respect. That looked like arrogance. Sonny stopped just a few feet away, the silence between them was deafening. "I'm sorry for your loss," Sonny said. His voice was steady, controlled, carefully chosen, but the reaction, immediate. Sidwell let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Cold, empty, dangerous. "I don't believe you," Sidwell snapped, his eyes burned with rage. Not for a second. The room shifted instantly, tension cracked through the air like lightning. Because this wasn't grief talking anymore, this was accusation. Sonny didn't flinch, didn't step back, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he held Sidwell's gaze. "I had nothing to do with this," Sonny said, simple, direct, firm, but Sidwell, he wasn't listening. "You expect me to believe that?" Sidwell shot back. His voice rising now. "You think I don't know how you operate?" People nearby started to move, slowly backing away, creating space. Because they could feel it. This was about to get ugly. Rick stepped forward slightly, trying to manage the situation. "Sidwell, this isn't the time." But Sidwell cut him off instantly. "Oh, it's exactly the time," he said sharply, his eyes never left Sonny. "Because you walked in here," Sidwell continued, "like you own the room." Another step closer, now they were face to face. "You think you can just show up, say a few words, and walk away clean?" Sonny's jaw tightened, just slightly, but enough. "I came here out of respect," Sonny replied. But Sidwell leaned in. Close. Too close. "Respect," he repeated, then shook his head. "That's not respect." A pause, heavy, dangerous. "That's guilt." The accusation hit like a punch, and for a moment, no one breathed. Because this was it. The line had been crossed. Sonny's voice dropped lower, colder. "You're wrong." Sidwell smirked. But there was no humor in it. "Am I?" he challenged, and just like that, the funeral turned into a confrontation no one could stop. Across town, at the hospital, the tension was building in a completely different way. Molly lay in her hospital bed. The room quiet. Machines humming softly, but inside her mind, nothing was calm. Christina still sat beside her, but now, the energy between them had shifted. Because Molly had asked the question, and Christina hadn't answered. "Not really." "Christina," Molly said again, gentler this time, but more direct. "What's really going on with you?" Christina looked away. Just for a second. But that was enough. Because Molly knew that look. She had seen it before, when Christina was hiding something, when she wasn't ready to say the truth out loud. "You can tell me," Molly added quietly, and for a moment, it almost happened. Christina almost said it. But then she stopped herself. "It's nothing," Christina said. Too quickly. Too casually. And that's when Molly frowned. Because now, she was sure, "That's not true," Molly replied. The tension in the room thickened, because this wasn't just sisterly concern anymore, this was confrontation. "You're different," Molly continued. "I can feel it." Christina swallowed, because she couldn't deny it. Not anymore, but admitting it. That was something else. And just as the moment stretched, the door opened, interrupting everything. A nurse stepped in, gentle, professional. "It's time," she said softly. And just like that, everything shifted again. Because now, there was no more time to talk, no more time to explain, only time to face what was coming. Molly took a breath, a deep one, and for a moment, all the questions, all the tension, all the emotions, they had to wait. Because now, it was about survival. As Molly was prepared for surgery, Christina stepped back. Watching, and for the first time, she looked scared. Not for herself, but for her sister. Meanwhile, just down the hall, Alexis sat quietly. Hands clasped, eyes distant. Trying to stay strong, but inside, she was breaking. Because this place, this hospital, it held too many memories. And not all of them ended well. Sam, the thought hit her again, hard. The loss. The helplessness. The moment everything changed. And now, Molly was going into surgery. And Alexis couldn't stop thinking, what if something goes wrong? Her breath caught slightly, because that fear, it wasn't rational, but it was real, and it was overwhelming. Cody Bell approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "You okay?" he asked gently. Alexis looked up, tried to smile, but it didn't quite land. "I've been better," she admitted. And that honesty, it opened something, because Cody understood. He sat beside her. "You're not alone," he said. Simple words. But in that moment, they mattered. Because sometimes, that's all someone needs to hear. And as they sat there together, two people connected by worry. The surgery had already begun. Back at the funeral, the situation was reaching its breaking point. Sidwell's anger wasn't fading, it was growing. "You think I don't know what this is?" he said, his voice sharp. Sonny stood his ground. "I didn't kill Marco," Sonny said again, but now, there was an edge to it. Because patience, it was running out. Sidwell stepped even closer. "Then prove it," he demanded. And just like that, the pressure shifted. Because now, it wasn't just about denial, it was about evidence. And Sonny, he didn't have it. Not here, not now, and Sidwell knew it. "That's what I thought," Sidwell muttered. A small smile, cold, satisfied. Because in his mind, silence meant guilt. Rick stepped in again, more forcefully this time. "This isn't helping anyone," Rick said, but Sidwell barely acknowledged him. Because this wasn't about logic anymore, this was personal, and Sonny, he knew it. Which is why, for the first time, he leaned in. "You want a war?" Sonny said quietly. The words were calm, but the meaning? Explosive. Sidwell didn't hesitate. "You already started one," and there it was, the point of no return. Because now, this wasn't a threat, this was reality. As the tension hung in the air, someone else was watching. Carly Spencer, her eyes locked on Sonny. Concern, frustration, fear, because she knew him, and she knew this wasn't going to end quietly. Later, she pulled him aside. "What are you doing?" Carly demanded. Her voice was sharp. But underneath it, worry. "You didn't have to come here." Sonny looked at her, calm again. "I had to," he said. Carly shook her head. "No, you didn't." Because in her mind, this wasn't strategy, this was risk. And Sonny, he was taking too much of it. "If I don't show up," Sonny explained, "then I look guilty." Carly stared at him. "And if you do show up, a beat. Now you've made it worse." And deep down, Sonny knew she wasn't wrong, but it was too late now, because the damage, it had already been done. Back at the hospital, time moved slower, every second stretched, every minute heavier than the last. Alexis sat in silence, Cody beside her, neither of them speaking, because sometimes words don't help. And somewhere beyond those doors, Molly was fighting her own battle, and no one knew how it would end. Back at the funeral, the crowd slowly settled again. But the energy, it hadn't disappeared. It had only shifted. Because everyone knew. This wasn't over, not even close. Sonny and Sidwell had crossed a line. And once that happens, there's no going back. Only forward. Into whatever comes next. And what comes next? It won't be peaceful. It won't be quiet. It will be explosive. Because now, it's personal. And as the day came to a close, two battles remained unresolved. One in the hospital, where life hung in the balance. And one in Port Charles, where war was just beginning. And the question now is, who will fall first? Do you think Sonny made a huge mistake showing up to the funeral, or was it the only move he had left? And more importantly, do you believe Sidwell will stop here? Or is this just the beginning of something far more dangerous? If you're watching General Hospital daily and don't want to miss any shocking twists, emotional breakdowns and explosive confrontations, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus was subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus was subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus was subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus was subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus was subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus was subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Marcus was subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, because in Port Charles the calm never lasts. And the next storm, it's already on the way.